name's Bob Stewart. I'm going to be presenting here, but you guys are really the ideas behind this. So all of you guys at ActiveRain and anybody that participates in this contest, this is where these ideas are coming from. If you want to talk to me while we're doing this call, it's at ActiveBob. You can always talk to me there. That's me on Twitter. Okay, so we get in here. I think the best answer, well, I don't know if it's the best answer. One of there's some very obvious things I think that people are doing in order to get more referrals. One that I don't mention in these slides, but I kind of chuckled at a little bit, was one guy just straight up wrote, "I've been in the business a long time," and he just talked about how longevity will tend to lead to referrals. And he mentioned that he's now selling. He's been in the business 30 years. He's selling homes, to the children, and in one case even the grandchildren of people that he's sold homes to in the past. So there's definitely something to be said for longevity. But one of the more obvious ways, and it's something that a lot of people touched on, is this concept of doing a good job for your clients. And I don't think there's anybody here that this is an aha moment for, right? But this idea that you're actually referable, you're worthy of being referred, somebody's friend or family. And I would like to think that everybody on this call thinks that they are referable, but you really need to take a good hard look at your business. And these two posts here, and there's one from Kathleen Daniels and there's one from Pat Kennedy, both of these ladies really, I think, got to some really good points on what it means to be referable. So, there's just, again, these are pretty basic things, but, are you setting expectations and then exceeding them? Are you being realistic? And in Kathleen's post, she talks about how she's gotten more comfortable over the years with turning down clients. And so if she walks into a listing presentation and somebody's saying, well, we have to get $400,000 for this house, and she knows she's not going to be able to get that for them, she's either going to convince them to list it at a price where it will sell, or she just walks away. And what that does is it makes her referable to the degree that she's not going to get into a transaction that sucks her energy, sucks her time, and where at the end of the day she ends up with an unhappy client, right? Because if she took it at $400,000 and she knew she couldn't sell it, that's not going to end up good for anyone. So be realistic. Be realistic in the expectations that you set for your clients. Make sure that they understand what it is. Again, these are kind of, I don't know that there's any tactics in here necessarily, but this idea, and it was prevalent in so many of the posts that I read, this idea that, are you actually doing a good job? And, the funny thing is, look, I would hope everybody on here thinks of their own business in terms of you're providing an excellent level of service, but when we look at the real estate industry as a whole, and we look at some of these polls that come out that continually rank real estate agents near the bottom, when we end up right next to like used car salesmen in a lot of these polls. And so what that would lead us to believe is, there is a segment of the population out there that is not referable. They're not doing, they're not giving their clients a high level of service. Communication is a huge deal, right? Every deal that you guys come across, it has an issue somewhere in it. And your ability to effectively communicate, with your client, with the lender, ensure communication between the two of them, with the inspector, those are fundamental things, because if you set the expectation early, if the client knows, hey, there's going to be a few bumps in the road, but it's not going to be a big deal, you're not one of those alarmists, right? Something comes back on the inspection report and all of a sudden, oh my goodness, it's the end of the world, right? If you're able to solve problems and work people through, these are all things, I don't have to tell you guys these things, but Kathleen and Pat both do a really good job in their posts. And Pat's in particular, she talks about having gone to a class with Joe Stump, the by referral only guy, and she did a 2-day seminar with him, and she talks in her post about some real fundamental things that he talks about, just things like showing up on time, like literally never being late, right? And just some things that make it so that at the end of the day and the end of the transaction, the client looks back and goes, man, Pat Kennedy is a really good agent, and they actually want to refer you out. So doing a good job for your clients, right? I mean, that's a real obvious one. I think another obvious one, and this was mentioned by both Aaron and Laura, is be good at what you do. And Laura even took it a step further in terms of focusing on a specific area. Aaron, in his post, he mentions, look, I do not sell houses outside of a certain area in the greater Atlanta area, right? He just focuses, and he knows, look, if he gets a client outside of the place he's really comfortable with, he's going to refer that out because he doesn't want to do a less than bang up job for that person. He wants to be able to drive into these neighborhoods, be able to point things out, be able to tell the people what schools the kids are going to end up at. He wants to really know that area inside and out so that it shows to his clients. And what he said is, I end up getting referrals because people really know at the end of the day that I knew this area like the back of my hand. I knew what the recent sales in this subdivision were like. He just really knew his stuff. Laura, she takes a little bit kind of deeper dive into this concept of being good at what you do, focusing on a specific area, and she talks in her post about how she has gotten a lot of referrals by focusing on one farm and really working that farm. So she does open houses in that farm. She'll do open houses for other agents in her office. Anytime she can get a chance to be available, present, and kind of in front of people in that farm area, she's going to take advantage of it. So she does postcards, and she's not postcard marketing for every listing she gets or every neighborhood that she could potentially hit in her market. She's really focused on a couple of farms that she's picked out because she wants the people in those areas to get familiar with her. And what she says in her post is it ends up that she gets referrals from people that weren't necessarily past clients of hers, right? They just get familiar with her being in the neighborhood. A couple weekends a month, she's got an open house in the neighborhood. Her signs are up. Once a month, they go to their mailbox and they pull out a postcard from her. So she's just really saturated a specific place, and it's led to a lot of referrals, again, even from people that she's not necessarily doing business with. Now, this was an answer that just, a lot of people had this answer, but there was a lot of different takes on this answer, which is essentially ask for the referral. On the flip side of that, I would say about half of the folks that wrote a post said, you know what, I asked for the referral, and half of the people said that is just not my style. So these next couple of slides might not be your style, but there's a few in here that maybe you could even be doing if it's not your style to ask for the referral. So we had a post from George Sodu. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, and I probably shouldn't have even brought up last names because there's a couple of them like this. But he's a little bit different. He's a loan officer, but what he says in his post is, you know what? I'm proud of what I do, and I'm really good at it. Like, he knows that he's a good loan officer, and most of his transactions, or all of his transactions, at the end of the day, the client realizes he was a good loan officer as well. And so what he does, and this is something similar to what Jeremiah Taylor does, and kind of the story that I tell in the blog post that preceded this webinar, is he asks at every step of the process. So for him, that means at the application phase, right? He's letting them know, hey, my business is based on referrals. When they get a loan approval, he's asking for referrals. When they find the house that they want, and now they're getting the final underwriting done, he's asked at every step of the process. He's letting people know that he's good at what he does, he's proud of what he does, and that his business is based on the people that he does a good job for referring him their friends and family in the future. So again, for half of the folks that participated, this was not something that they were comfortable with, and I bet there's a bunch of folks on the line right now who just would say, you know what, I'm just not that aggressive. Like, I wouldn't want someone doing that to me, so I'm not going to do it to someone else. That's fine. Another way that's kind of the ask for referrals was this concept that Francine brought up, and she said, look, at the outset, so she has a sit-down meeting with all of her clients, and with the seller, it's the listing presentation, and you obviously go in and do that. But I think a lot of agents don't necessarily have that sit-down consultation with the buyer. And one of the things that she does, especially as it relates to when she's working with the buyer, because in a listing presentation, the idea of what you do and how you get paid is going to come up. But with a buyer, the ability to sit them down and describe to them what it is you're going to do for them and how you get paid can leave them with the understanding that you're like some of these people out there, because we're in the industry all day long, right? We work in it, so we realize this is a commission-based deal. I mean, there's people out there that actually believe that you work for Remax, well, Remax pays you. Well, that's not exactly how it works, right? So we need to make sure that our clients, that they understand what it is we're going to do for them and how we're going to get paid on that transaction. So Francine takes the opportunity to let people know that, you know, she is paid based on helping them find a house, which leads her to the ability to ask them, you know, if they know anybody else that might be interested in her services, or if they come across that person in the future, that they might refer them to her. So that's a little bit, it's not quite as in your face as George's approach, where he just said, you know what, at every turn I'm going to do this. She's going to discuss, she's going to sit down and have a conversation with somebody, set that expectation, let them know what to expect from her, but also let them know how she gets paid. I really enjoyed Ed's post here, and his post was really based around this idea of finding the right time to ask. So Ed's a guy, he says, you know what, I am comfortable asking for referrals. I know that you know, when people go home at night, they don't just naturally assume that I need their referrals. He said, I'm comfortable though asking for it, but I need to find the right time. And he goes on in his post to let us know that it becomes an art form. Okay, and there's a couple of things that he said in here that I think were good. One of the things he said is, I don't do it before we find the house. He said, I just don't feel comfortable. I want them to kind of see me working for them. He said, I don't do it like right when we get the house signed around. He said, you know, right when the offer's accepted, he said, yeah, people are excited and they're happy, but I want them to be excited and happy for them. And he said, and another time he doesn't do it is at or around the closing table. He said there's a lot of stress going on there. You know, if someone's a first-time home buyer, even if they're buying for the second or third time, there can be a lot of stress. You know, a lot of times it's happy stress, but there's stress around that day of closing, or even those couple of days around closing. So he said what he generally does is somewhere in between when they get that contract signed and they get that kind of clear to close, but before they get to the closing table, he said he always ends up finding kind of this sweet spot in there that's just the right time to let the people know that, man, he really enjoyed working with them, and he would love to have a chance to work, you know, with anybody that they might be able to refer to him. So Joe, I really liked, a lot of these posts were really good, and when I didn't expect to get this many great ideas. In fact, when we did this originally, we called it seven ideas. There's going to be way more than 7 in here, but Joe said every time he gets a referral from someone, so the client's now coming to him, they've been referred to him by somebody else, what he does is he sets an expectation based on that referral. And he sets it right up front. So he basically, and you can see if you go, and again, we'll give you the slides at the end here so that you can actually click on these links and go and read some of these posts that maybe interest you a little bit more. But he said if he gets referred someone, he has, I don't want to call it a script, but he kind of gives us a script of what he says to them, but it essentially amounts to, look, the person that referred you to me appreciated my service enough that they let you know as a friend or family member of theirs, right, that I'm the guy to work with. I would really appreciate it that if, when this is all said and done, if you have a similar experience to what they had, that you would take an opportunity to do the same thing that they did for you. So I really like that idea of, you know, he might not do this with every single client, right? He might not ask for that referral from every single client in this fashion, but anytime he gets referred someone, he's going to set that expectation for that person based on that relationship, that referral relationship that person came from. So we're talking about getting the referral, right? And a lot of times this becomes somebody passing your business card or somebody giving your name to a friend or family member of theirs. And one of the things that Dick Greenberg, and there's a couple of examples that I'm going to use from Dick in here because I really liked his post and it had a variety of topics that he touched on. But one of the things that he said is very important in his business is if somebody lets him know, and he also kind of positions people in this fashion in advance, but if he's made aware that a client, a past client, a friend or family, somebody made a referral to him, he takes it upon himself to go to kind of track that person down, right? He's not going to hope that they remembered the name Dick Greenberg and they've got the phone number that they wrote on the business card they got handed that they stuck in their, you know, the console of their car or whatever. So when he's made aware, and he kind of sets this expectation up front, he's going to try to actually make the contact with the person who was referred to him. Instead of sitting back and hoping that person kept the business card and makes the phone call, he's going to be proactive, and he's going to go out and actually get the contact information for that referral, and he's going to make the first step in that relationship. You know, if somebody took the time to let their friend or family know that you're the guy to be working with, that's a pretty good position to be coming from when you reach out to somebody. So that's what Dick does. I think that's a really good idea if you're not doing that already. If you're just sitting back and hoping, man, I hope that guy calls me. I know Jenny said that she referred me to her friend George, but, you know, and you guys, if you've been in the business long enough, you've had this happen where George never called. There was a couple of kind of interesting, I don't know, again, maybe they're scripts or they're just ways that people present things, but there's one from Janice, and Janice wrote a post about she's worked for a broker for a long time, and one of the things that this broker taught her early on in her career was, and she works a bunch with investors, but is when you're in front of somebody and you're doing business with them already, to make sure to ask if there's anything else out there that they might be doing that you could help them with. And so she's gotten in the habit of when she goes and she's working with an investor, that at some point in the conversation, after they've kind of wrapped up the idea that they're going to do this first business deal, she's gotten in the habit of now saying, what else can I sell for you? Do you have anything else out there that you're thinking about? And she said that, you know, a few times this has led to the guy going, well, you know what? Not right now, but we do have this next property that we're going to be doing. Or so just think about some of just read her post. It's a really good kind of, she gives you a sense for where in the conversation she slips it in, but she does this now, and it's become something that she said is kind of falling out of her mouth at this point, but when she first thought of the idea, it never would have occurred to her to say it, and she almost felt uncomfortable saying it. Sheila wrote this post, and it's funny sometimes people kind of have, I do this when I write as well. You know, you'll be writing something and you've written something, and then all of a sudden you have like an epiphany, and now what you want to write next, you almost want to delete everything you just wrote before that. And so in Sheila's blog, she goes in and says, you know what? I'm not doing a very good job of asking for referrals. I don't do it, you know, when we close a deal. I don't do it at any point during the transaction. And then you can see this kind of mind shift set, like literally as she's writing the blog post, and she goes, you know what? Maybe I do something. It's almost like she wanted to go back and erase those prior paragraphs. No, she didn't. But what she said she does is when she's out showing houses to buyers, if she's starting to get a sense that the buyer's just not interested, and you guys, you know, if you've shown enough houses, you can usually tell, especially if you've been out to, you know, a couple of houses with the client, you get in the door and you know, they're kind of walking through fast and they're not opening any cupboards, and you know, it's just not the house for them. She always asks, who else do you know that this might be a good house for? And one of the things she said is she actually has buyers that become conditioned, and after the third or fourth house that they're in, all of a sudden they'll actually start to offer names up. And you know, it could be that they don't know anybody, but she said that over time what will happen as she's taking buyers out to more and more homes is they will actually start to offer up names of friends or family that this might be a good fit for. So she kind of admitted, you know, I guess I never really thought about that as asking for the referral until I actually had to think about it. Okay, so we've got this idea of asking for the referral. We kind of talked about some of the different tactics that people are using for that. Another just common theme throughout all of these posts is the idea of staying in contact, okay? And there are, you know, there was some really good posts in there where people said, you know, here's exactly what I'm doing to stay in contact. So, you know, once a quarter I make a phone call to my past clients. Once a month they get some kind of a paper newsletter from me. You know, there was a whole variety of kind of the things people are doing to stay in contact. And you know, a lot of people were mentioning Facebook and how they'll go on, and when they make their phone call to that person once a quarter, they'll go in and try to learn something about them on Facebook. There was people talking about handwritten notes that they write. There was lots of stuff like that about staying in contact. Here's a few that I kind of pulled out of there. This one from Erica Ramos was, I think, again, just a great idea, if you're already working on referrals. And as I look back at the answers to those questions from earlier, I said, how many of you guys, how much of your business is coming from referrals right now? You guys already have people referring business to you. And so what she does is she sits down and she figures out once a year, in the last year, who were the top 10 people that referred me somebody? And then she also looks at who are the top organizations that maybe her referrals were coming out of. So is it like a local BNI group? Is it her church, right? So who are the people and who are the organizations? And then she pays special attention to those people. And, like the Joe Stump by referral only, any of these guys that are out there talking about referrals, you're going to hear them say, in any one of your business, you kind of have these super fans, right? And a lot of times this is just indicative of who they are as a person, but they're talkers, right? They're sharers. They're out there, and if they see somebody and the person's, in the grocery store line, like looking at the real estate book, they're going to jump in and say, hey, man, you got to work with my real estate. They're just one of those people. But what Erica does is she makes sure to give special attention to those people who are the most likely to refer business to her. Now, she doesn't completely not touch the rest of her sphere, but she gives, right, so she's still doing the quarterly calls and she's still sending out the monthly newsletter to everybody, but she pays special attention to those people that she knows already have sent her referrals and are the most likely to send her referrals in the future. And so she talks about taking them out to lunch once a month or once a quarter. She talks with the organizations about doing things like maybe in her church, for instance, she does a sponsorship on their newsletter. So there's people already inside of her church who are talking about her as a real estate agent, and she just wants to make sure that she kind of takes those next steps to really solidify her name and her face in front of that organization. I mean, this one, thank the people referring you business, right? And there was all kinds of, and you got to be careful with, the amount of the gifts that you can give and these different things that are kind of based on the real estate laws of your state. But Belinda makes a concerted effort to let the folks who refer her business knows that she appreciates it. And what I think a lot of us do, if we're doing something like this, is once the deal closes, that's when we do the thank you. Right, so maybe it's a bottle of wine or it's a gift certificate to a nice restaurant in the area, and we say, hey, thanks for referring me, John. What Belinda does is she does the thank you in two spots. She does it right when she gets the referral. She does like a gift card, she said, to a local restaurant. And then once the referral closes, she does another thank you. So she said there's lots of times where she gets referred, somebody doesn't end up becoming a transaction, but that's okay. She still wants to thank that person that made the referral to her, even if that referral doesn't end up becoming a transaction. So, I would imagine a bunch of you guys are probably doing something similar to this. I like the approach that Belinda takes that basically says, look, I don't care if they do business with me. I appreciate the fact you even made the referral. If they end up doing business with me, I'm going to thank you again. So Chris Ann's whole post was about her newsletter that she does, and she gives some really good tips in there for some of the things that she puts in her newsletter, and I think I have a slide in a little bit that talks some more about newsletters. But one of the things that she does in her newsletter is she publicly thanks the people that have referred her clients from that past month. So if John referred her Jack, and Jack had a transaction that last month, in her newsletter, she will publicly thank John. So she will say something like, hey, and she actually gives you the verbiage that she uses in her newsletter on this post, but it's something to the effect of, hey, I just want to take a minute this month to really give a special thanks to Jack. My business is built on referrals, and I was able to help his brother this month, sell their house and find another agent where they were relocating to in Ohio, or, whatever it is. She kind of tells a little bit of the story, but she's publicly thanking the person making the referral. This does two things. One is it gives the other people in your database the idea that you appreciate referrals, right? But it also reinforces to that particular person, hey, I really appreciated this. Like I'm taking the time in front of all of these people, not just you, to say thank you, but in front of everybody that I value in my business, I'm thanking you as well. Okay, this is an example from Margaret Rome, and I don't know exactly that this was what she meant. As I went back kind of after I built this out and I read her post again, so Margaret is very active. She's written a book. She's really active on ActiveRain, helping people, and she's made a lot of connections. Local realtor associations and local boards and those things. She's made a lot of connections in her business. But as I was reading her post, one of the things that kind of jumped out to me was this idea that there's a lot of folks that have been in the business throughout the time Margaret's been in the business that leave the business. And my friend Ben Kinney, who I talk about from time to time in our webinars, he's even done some stuff with us. He actually does this with people's lead, with their databases, and with their website domains. When an agent in his market gets out of the business, he gives them a couple of days to feel sorry for themselves. And then he calls them up and he tries to get his hands on their database and their domain name. Now he's ruthless and cutthroat, but this idea here would be staying in touch with agents who are getting out of the business, right? Because their spheres might still think of them as a resource to go to when they want real estate help. And so if you're somebody that's built good, you probably have to have had built good relationships along the way with that person. I think that's the root of what Margaret's post is about, is this idea that she's out there sharing and helping people and just overall being a great contributor to her market in terms of her peers. But when she builds those relationships and then people are moving on out of the business, right, to take a chance to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm really sorry that things didn't work out, and I'm wishing you well at your next venture. But I'd love if you would, if you thought that the advice and the tutelage that I gave you over the years was worth something, hey, I would love it if you would refer people to me. Margaret's probably sitting over there going, oh my goodness, that is not what I meant at all. But that's what I took out of it, Margaret. All right, so I'm going to continue to stay in contact here. So those first things we were kind of talking about, staying in contact with people that are referring you business or could potentially be referring you business. Something similar here, but this idea of a newsletter, right? And we saw a lot of people write about what they're putting in their newsletter, and this being kind of a primary way that they are staying in touch or staying in front of or staying top of mind for people in their sphere. And one of the things, and I don't have a slide for this, but I think it's probably important to note, one of the things that all of these people seem to have in common is some way to deliver this. Okay, and a lot of them actually talk about the idea of their database, and there was one lady, I can't remember who it was, who said, in her database she has a field for like special likes and interests, so she'll actually send newsletters to like smaller groups of people, like if they're moms, for instance. She's got a list where she sends stuff just to moms, and the newsletter's tailored a little bit different for the moms than it would be for just her first-time home buyers out of her database. So this idea that you have something capable of delivering, emails on a big scale, so like Happy Grasshopper would be an example that I saw a lot of people use, and I really respect what the guys Dan and Celeste have done at Happy Grasshopper. They use this system where the touches are, they can be real estate specific, but they're not always real estate specific. They're just, they allow you to email out and share things that are just kind of interest to everybody and anybody potentially, and they get a high rate of response on those kind of, I don't even call them newsletters, but those kind of fun, catchy emails. In Gail's particular instance here, in the link that we have in this blog, which again you guys will be able to get all of these links at the end, she talks about how she moved into an area that she was not from, but that they used to vacation in, and so Fishhawk Lake, this small little community, and one of the things that gave her an advantage when she first moved in there was that her husband had been the president of the homeowners association in that community prior to them relocating there full-time. So it was their vacation area, and it was a vacation area for most people, and over the last 10 years that they've lived there, this area has really started to transform, and there's a lot more people kind of moving in that aren't necessarily vacation folks. But from that initial contact that she was able to make, because she knew the folks based on her husband's association with the homeowners, she actually had their addresses, right? She knew all of the addresses in her market. So she started doing this newsletter, and this wasn't, on here I have an e-newsletter, and a lot of folks are probably at the point in your business where you do not anymore send out an actual newsletter mailed out to people, and there's obvious cost savings involved in that, but Gail actually mails out and continues to do to this day a newsletter to her area. And I think she said she does it once a quarter, and just what she's doing in there is she's talking about Fishhawk Lake, what's going on, how are homes selling, how are things changing. And she said there's been a lot of change over the last, I think it's 7 years that they've lived here, but she's really been able to keep the local homeowners up to date on what's going on. And she said that was just an unbelievable way and she was a little bit lucky, right, in that she had the addresses for all these people, but just consistently over 7 years, she's always been there with that newsletter. And she said all the time she's getting calls now, from people that have been, following this thing for years and years and years. And that goes back to that longevity, right? A lot of these things are based on doing them over a long period of time. A couple of kind of specific examples of some things that people shared that they do in their newsletters that were a little bit different than kind of, you had the people that were saying, look, I share, remodeling tips, or I share home staging advice, or I share decoration advice, or, seasonal types of things, right? How to get your plants ready in the fall or the spring. I don't even know when you get plants ready. I'm not a green thumb. But one of the things that Christine Donovan did or talked about that was a little bit different, I didn't see anybody else mention, and it's not something that I don't know that I've ever heard of somebody doing, is she will actually send, as a part of her newsletter or as like an email campaign to people, stories from the field where she talks about challenging or difficult transactions that one of her clients went through and how she was able to help them navigate those. And so, again, and I said this before, you guys been in the business long enough, there's very few deals that just go smooth A to Z, right? You got all these bumps and these things that you have to navigate, and each deal's a little bit different. But what she's done is she calls it planting seeds, right, where she's sharing with the people in her sphere the way that she goes about helping her clients, right? And the stories are about her client and how she was able to help her client successfully navigate to get their wishes met, right? Now, granted, there's something in there, it's a little bit self-serving in that she's talking about how she did it for them, but the idea is she's letting her sphere know, hey, this is what I do, this is how much work I put in to getting deals closed for my clients. I like Len Harley. I love this lady. I mean, she's, I don't know, if she's number 1 or number 2 in points on ActiveRain, she's just a ridiculous wealth of real estate knowledge. And if you don't read Len's blog, I would highly encourage you to do it. But her post had a couple of good examples and some things that we've covered from other people's posts. One of the things that I really liked out of her is related to the newsletter that she sends out. But it's not just any time. Okay, she has a thing that she calls Lens Alerts, and she's been doing this for years. And as a part of her business, on a day-to-day basis, she is very involved in what the local laws and regulations are as it relates to homeowners in her marketplace. So when things change, or there's bills up in the state legislature, or there's things going on that are going to impact the homeowners in her area, she has what she calls Lens Alerts, and she sends it out, and she's been doing this, again, with some consistency over the years. And, I mean, if you've ever read her blog, you know that she's highly capable of breaking down, some piece of new legislation that's coming about and letting the homeowner know, hey, this is what this means to you. And so she's very active in just being aware of what's going on in her marketplace, but then she takes that awareness and she makes sure to share it with the people who are capable of doing business with her. And, this leads to referrals. This leads to people directly reaching out to her and wanting to do business with her based on something that she's sharing with them as it relates to their local market. This is something you could never do if you weren't really up to speed on what's going on and the kind of laws and regulations that affect homeowners in your area, right? I mean, I'm sure she does this around tax rates and just all sorts of things. And, I mean, Len's a smart lady, so if I was getting Lens Alerts at my house, I would be paying particular attention to those things, and I'd probably be thinking about, geez, if this doesn't impact me, who does this impact that I know? So, this idea that so Marty in her post, she talks about, now this isn't something that you could maybe do all the time, but she decided that she was going to rebrand her business. And one of the things that she did is, and she said this is the biggest response she's ever gotten from a campaign to her sphere is, and she actually breaks the numbers down in the post in terms of how many people responded, but she let her past clients, friends, family sphere be involved in selecting a new tagline and a new kind of brand for her business. And so she sent one out and she said, hey, I'm thinking about rebranding my business. Here's a couple examples of some things I were thinking, but I'd love to hear if you guys have any good ideas that I could use. And so she said she got a bunch of responses, and she had like 35 responses of people giving her like, here's a tagline you could use for your business. So she picked like the top 10, I think, that she liked out of those, and then she sent another email out and said, hey, here's the top 10. I'd appreciate if you guys would vote on these. And again, she got another large response from this, and she let her clients be a part of identifying her brand, right? Which makes sense, right? These are the people that have done business with her. These are the people that kind of would be in a best position to say, this is who you are. And she just got them involved. There's all kinds of these types of contests, these ideas that you could do, and what kinds of prize. You don't have to give out crazy prizes for these things. Maybe it's a $10 gift card to Starbucks, but the idea is just getting these people responding and interacting with you while keeping the idea that you're in the real estate business in front of them in a fresh way that's not just, hey, here's my weekly or here's my monthly recipe, right? Like, I mean, those things are fine, and with some consistency, that's probably going to be effective for somebody, but you want to try to find ways to get them to interact with you. Closing gifts, a lot of people talked about closing gifts, right? And it's something that they do as a part of just showing their client that they appreciate them in hopes that that person will then turn around and refer them to other people. One of the best ones that I saw in here was, again, from Dick Greenberg. He does a subscription to this Sunset magazine. It's basically a year-long subscription, and each month there's some kind of a message on the magazine, and he said it's a local magazine, it's a regional thing, so you could have one for, his is based on the mountain area, he's in Colorado, but this company, and again, I don't have any affiliation with this company, but Dick likes them, so I'm going to share them with you. He said that this helps his business. It helps, every month for that year after the folks, do business with him, they're getting some kind of a reminder. All he has to do is write the little message on it. He doesn't have to worry about the packaging or sending it out or shipping it, and he actually shares the price in there, and it was something like $14 a year or $17 a year for this nice magazine with his branding on it. And so on a monthly basis, that's breaking down to just $1.50 or something a month that he's spending, but it's a closing gift that just throughout the year they're continuing to have him in front of them. And I would guess a lot of our closing gifts are something where it's, they get it, it's a bottle of wine, it's a nice dinner, they have it, they're thinking about us while they're having it, and then boom, they're not thinking about us once a month like they're thinking about Dick. Handwritten notes, I mean, this is not like rocket science, right? Like, if there's anybody on the call today that has not heard of the idea of writing handwritten notes, you're probably really young. I guess you're 20 years old. I don't know. But people like to get these things, right? And if you go out to your mailbox and you go through your mail, what's the first thing you're likely to open? It's something that's hand addressed. At least me, like what's in my mailbox? It's garbage, spam, right? It's mail spam. Bills, yippee for those, right? And that's about it, right? Sometimes there'll be a postcard in there from a real estate agent, there's some kind of like what's, I guess, designed to be a little bit more personal marketing, but it's not, right? I'm going to open the handwritten note first every single time, and I think most people are going to do that. And so Barbara Joe, and there's a few people that mention this in her, she talks about some of the occasions that she takes to send handwritten notes, and she said a lot of what, or maybe it was someone else's post, but a lot of these people are taking what they learn on Facebook, right, what people are sharing, and taking an opportunity to send a handwritten note to somebody, sometimes just out of the blue, not for any reason, maybe not even to ask for referrals. Now, there was a lot of folks that were doing it, as a thank you after the thing, and there was one lady that said, Oh, that's on the next slide. I'll save that for a second. The second side of this is and I've got the purple cow up there, but marketing that stands out. And Sally and David, and I think it's Sally that's actually the writer of their blog, she shared that when they do their handwritten letters for years, and again, this consistency theme, they've been sending them out in a purple envelope. And she said in her referral circles and in her sphere, everybody knows what the purple envelope is. Like if you're getting the purple envelope, it means it's coming with something from Sally, you know, and there might be a $5 gift card in there from time to time, but there's a personal note in there, okay? And that's something that stands out. It's something that's been branded into the heads of the folks in her referral circles. I really like this one, and again, this was a lady, Lisa, who it would seem in her blog post as she wrote it, she was having an epiphany or something. I don't know, it didn't feel like she thought she was doing as much as she could be doing to get the referrals, but I liked something that she wrote in towards the end of her post. And basically what she said is, and she was talking about her follow-up strategy once somebody's purchased a home from her, and she said, you know, she does some kind of a thank you, like, you know, a personalized sort of a thank you, like after the contract's been accepted. And I think she said she does one like, you know, right away, the day after the closing or something. She maybe does a bottle of wine or a gift basket or something, some kind of a closing gift. But she said what she does then is the next time that she has a buyer who is looking in a similar area to that, she will send her past client a note, a piece of mail that basically says, hey, you know, I was just thinking about you guys. I've got another client, and she might have even mentioned that she does a follow-up phone call, but I got another client that's looking in your area, and I was just wondering in the last couple of, you know, in the last month or the last 2 months or however long it's been until she has another client in that area, have you guys come across anybody in your neighborhood that you think might be interested in selling? And so, you know, when people move in and, you know, and if you're in Seattle, it's not as common that you would get to know all your neighbors. Remember, a lot of us are in markets where you move in and people still get to know their neighbors and they're welcomed into the community, and they start to know people around them, right? And they start to have conversations, and the conversations are probably something like, hey, what do you guys buy your house for? We're, you know, John's getting relocated in a couple months and we're thinking about selling, right? So she takes this opportunity when she has another buyer to make a touch to her clients who are now somebody that's kind of in that neighborhood, right, and is getting to know the people that live around them, and she uses that as a chance to ask if they know of anybody that might be thinking about leaving the neighborhood because she's got somebody that's interested in joining it. Okay, there was all kinds of posts about working with and referring to trusted vendors, and you know, if you're not somebody that has a really good handle on who you want to do business with, I would encourage you to make that happen. Okay, you know, some of the best agents that I know, they know who they're going to for their inspection. Like they know who they're going to or who they're going to suggest that their client go to for their loan, because what these people do, right, these people that you refer business to and this trusted kind of network that you have, is it all the way back to that very first slide, which was you do a good job for your clients, and all of the people that you refer are a reflection, or all of the people that you work with are a reflection on the service that you provided, right? Because think about it, even if you didn't refer the loan officer and it just ends up being a sideways mess, right? There's still some association to you for that mess, right? And I realize with, you know, RESPA, we can't say, hey, you have to use this person, but you're definitely being asked, you know, who are the people we should use? So, you know, make sure that you have a trusted network set up. And there's actually a post that Margaret, she got a little bit sherry this time. She was full of good ideas, but she had a post in there where she talks about, it's the last one on this slide, referrals beget referrals, and she just talked about, she gives a list of a bunch of other people that she makes sure that she has good communication and contact with as it relates to somebody buying a house. So she's talking about people like, you know, the person that services the pool, or the people that do the yards, or the electrician or the plumber, and she's got all of these folks where when somebody's moving into town, like they need to know who's a good plumber for me to use, right? And she makes sure she has a trusted circle of people that she refers business to, because those people, right, the plumber who goes over to fix the guy's house because he's getting it ready to sell, right, those people are capable of making referrals back to you. Again, this is not rocket science, but I think really focusing on doing this and building out a network like this, super important. I'm gonna take a deep breath here for a second. Whew. All right. Why do I need to take a deep breath? Because we want to be passionate, right? Be involved with something about which you're passionate. And then again, it's funny how, these ideas, I don't know that I've shared anything that's like groundbreaking or brand new, but when you collectively bring all of these things together and you start to think about maybe some of the things that you're aware of that you're not doing, right? That you start to realize like I'm missing probably a bunch of potentials in here, right? And if each potential led to one additional referral a year, well, wow, that could really change your business. And this idea that, get involved in something in your community about which you're passionate. I didn't put the names on here, but the people that wrote the marketing luxury real estate referrals, they talked about being foodies. And they are really big in Southern California in checking out new restaurants. And when they go there, they make sure they get to know the owner. And they've just really kind of immersed themselves in the foodie culture because that's something they're passionate about. They like to eat, right? And who doesn't? But I mean, they're really passionate about it. Like they travel to Italy to go eat fine cuisine. And in doing that, they've connected with people, right, that connect with them. So they're not just out there, hoping to get referrals from everybody and anybody. They're hoping to get referrals from people that like have common interests as they do. There's another lady who wrote a post, and it was kind of tongue-in-cheek in that she said I think her husband believes that the only thing she does all day is golf, but she really uses the golf course as a way for her to connect with people. Right? She'll go out there as a single. She'll meet up with a group. She does it a couple of times a week, and she ends up getting new business and getting referrals out of doing that. Right? Something she's passionate about. She enjoys doing it. Like that's literally her office for the day while she's working the people in her foursome and just let them know who she is and what she does. Right? There's some really good examples in here. There's another one from Len. Len, the reason I have this, actually, you're probably looking at this image like, why does he have a guy with a shotgun? Because there's probably nobody more passionate than gun owners, right? And Len is a gun owner, and she loves her guns, and she said that one of the places that she gets a bunch of referrals out of is I think it's a shotgun club that she's a member of, but it's something she's passionate about, right? She's there with other people who are passionate about the same thing, and it's really easy to have conversations with those people. And so it might be your church, or it might be I think there's one in here that talks about somebody who's actually passionate about real estate. And they're really involved in like their local board, and there's a lot that happens there where agents who aren't necessarily from that specific city may be referring them business, and so just find something that you're passionate about, and these are things that probably a lot of us are doing anyway, but are we thinking about them in terms of how they can help our business? All right, this is the last one, and this was, of all the stuff I read, this is one I'd never seen or heard, and it was a little bit unexpected, and I think if you were to do this for somebody, it would be unexpected. But Shanna, and she comes right out, and I think the first line in her post says something to the effect of, most people I tell about this tell me I'm crazy. But she says what she does is she literally, like, at closing, and in her post she kind of gives a caveat in that sometimes that she has to do it in advance, but she will literally just, and there's another caveat, which is she only does this for people that she actually enjoyed working with, that were nice, and that she enjoyed working with, right? She will just literally drop their commission by 0.5% at closing, just because. And what she goes on to say in there is this strategy has been very effective. Like this kind of unexpected gift to somebody, in her case, she said, like, what is $600? Like, I'm going to give them $600 back in exchange for like 2 or 3 referrals. And she gives an example, like one of the people she's done this with has referred her 3 clients. So the $11,000 in commission she's made from those 3 clients, completely overshadows the $600 that she gave that person at closing because they were a good client and she enjoyed working with them and they made things easy. And right, so she does something completely unexpected. People love it. And it leads them to think about her all the time. Like, that's how you create a raving fan. That's how you create somebody that when they're standing in line at the grocery store behind the guy with the real estate book, they're going to say, hey, you need to work with Shanna. Like, she's awesome. All right, so that's it. That was more than 7. Hope you picked something up there. I mean, we can go in and look here at questions. So let's take a couple comments. Scott says reward the referrer immediately. Don't wait until it pans out. Yeah, I agree. I mean that's something that whoever it was that brought that idea to us, she said like I want those people to know, because even if it doesn't pan out, like I want them to know, like refer me to the next person, right? Like keep this coming. I appreciate it. I don't care if they close. I just appreciate that you had my name on your brain. Jesse says, any more info about the Sunset magazine branded for realtors? I'll tell you what, Jesse, why don't you leave that question on our Facebook page? So what I would have you do is, if you go to our Facebook page. You're going to get a look at my inbox here real quick. We don't need that. My 1,000 unanswered emails. Facebook.com/ActiveRain. Jesse, if you go to our Facebook page and just leave a comment on there that you want some more info about it, I will get you that post from Dick so that he links off to the site that he uses in the company, and so there's some more info in there. And again, just leave a comment here on our Facebook page, and I'll get in there and answer that for you. Krista's on the ball. Oh, she's got it already. Kristen says, I used to order Sunset magazine from Lowe's Realtor Benefits, so that might be something you would check out. I don't know if like Lowe's has all these benefits that if you're a realtor, you're like literally you can get like 10% discounts for your clients, and it looks like Sunset magazine is one of the benefits in the Lowe's Realtor benefit package. Susan says, I was late. I just joined. Will this thing be recorded? Absolutely. Yeah, Susan, we record these things. As long as you were on the list, we will get an email out with the recording to everybody that either attended or signed up and didn't get a chance to attend. So there'll be an email that follows up. Normally we would send them out the same day, but it's kind of late in the day today. So tomorrow you'll get an email with the recording, and it'll also have a link to where you can download the slides. And so on that note, Carrie is who's back from her honeymoon, little vacation that she had. If you've joined me for any of my recent classes, I think in every one I kind of bemoaned the fact that she was on a sunny beach somewhere and I was stuck in a gray office. But she's back. So she's going to send out right now the link of where you can go and download this slide presentation. And essentially where you will be going is this page right here. And this is our slide share. This is my slide share page. And this is the link. And so Carrie's going to chat that out to everybody right now. When you land on this page, if you want to download the slides, all you'll do is come in here and hit save, and it will actually download the slides for you, like mine just did it. Boom, downloaded. Yeah, I want to keep that. And then when I come in here and open this PDF, as you scroll through here, each of these things will be links that you can click on. So if there was a particular slide that you were interested in and you kind of want to see a little bit more about that agent's approach to that, you can actually just come in here and click on these. So for instance, here's where she talked about the postcard farming and the open houses, and she really focuses on a neighborhood. You can see she goes in here, like she gives you way more information in here than I could have ever thought about giving you in the 2 or 3 minutes that I covered that particular slide. All right, here's what I want you to do. It's what, almost top of the hour? Yeah, we got 4 minutes left. I'd like to ask you guys a question before you leave, and I'm not 100% sure that normally we have like some exit questions when you leave the webinar. I'm not sure if those were set up. So before you guys leave, do me a favor. This idea of this crowdsourcing of information, I think, is pretty powerful as it relates to how awesome our members are about sharing. In the questions area right now, let me know what you would think would be some good ideas that we could crowdsource, and I'll give you a couple of examples. I think it would be awesome for us to crowdsource like open house ideas, right? There's a bunch of folks out there that are doing some really cool things with their open house, and for them to share and then us to be able to pull them together and give you guys a presentation on here's 15 cool things that you could be doing at your open houses. So give me some other ideas about things like that that you guys might want to see in the future for these kinds of crowdsourced classes and contests. Bridget, if you guys have a specific question, I get a chance to answer it, or you're looking for like a link to something, post it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/ActiveRain. So like Bridget's asking for where's the web page for the special deals if you're a realtor. Post that on our page. I know where it's at. I just don't know it off the top of my head. I'll go find it for you and answer that. Yeah, Ryan, I'll do me a favor. Ryan Cunningham, email me. Yeah, I checked it out. I looked at it a bunch, and it literally had a slide at one point, and it just email me. I'd love to have a chat with you about that. Yeah, you guys are giving me some awesome ideas here. So like crowdsourcing best ideas for Craigslist, crowdsourcing cold calling, crowdsourcing door knocking. I mean, these are some really good ideas, and awesome. Okay. All right. Whew. It's top of the hour. Guess what? I gotta go pick my son up from his after-school activity. I appreciate you guys joining me for ActiveRain University. Thank you so much. Next week we will kick off our boot camp series again, and so next Thursday we'll have blogging boot camp. Our first class talks about SEO, how to write blog posts that rank in the search engines, and it's a 3-week series. I'd love if you can join me for those. You can always find our classes and that stuff that's going on coming here to the top of ActiveRain, going to resources, and then university. And our blogging bootcamp is right here, and that'll give you a chance to sign up for it. There's even videos in there from our last set of blogging bootcamp classes that we did. Hopefully we'll see you guys sometime here in the near future. Have a fantastic finish to your week, a great weekend. On behalf of Carrie, who's back from vacation, my name is Bob at ActiveRain. Bye-bye, everybody.